Samuel Hayes had spent most of his years living under the wide skies of Arizona, where the sun rose like a burning coin, and the evenings cooled the land with a soft desert breeze. He was a quiet man, the kind who spoke only when he had something worth saying. Most people in town knew him as a hard-working rancher who preferred the company of horses and open land rather than crowded saloons or noisy gatherings. His life was simple, steady, and predictable until the day he met the young Apache woman on the desert trail. That morning had started like any other. Samuel had gone to town to deliver a wagon full of supplies, bags of beans, tools, rope, and a few crates of dried fruit. After finishing his errands, he headed back toward his ranch, guiding his horse along a narrow path that cut through miles of open desert. The sky was bright, but the wind carried leftover dust from a sandstorm that had swept through the land the day before. Even the cactus stood quietly, as if recovering from the harshness of nature. As Samuel rode on, he noticed something unusual in the distance, something small and unmoving beside a cluster of large rocks. At first, he thought it might be an injured animal, maybe a coyote or a deer trying to rest after the storm. But as he drew closer, he realized it was not an animal at all. It was a person. He slowed his horse, narrowing his eyes. Someone was sitting on the ground, leaning against a stone as though they were too tired to continue. Their long dark hair blew gently in the wind, and their clothes were dusty from the storm. For a moment, Samuel considered turning back, unsure if the person would be afraid of him. But he could not ignore someone who looked like they needed help. He stopped his horse a short distance away so he wouldn't appear threatening. "Hello there," he called gently. "Are you all right?" The person lifted their head in surprise. It was a young woman, no older than her early 20s. Her face was a little pale from exhaustion, and her eyes held a mix of worry and uncertainty. As soon as she saw Samuel, she shifted backward, pressing herself against the rock as if to create more distance. "Please, don't hurt me," she said softly, her voice trembling, though she tried to stay brave. "I'll help you any way I can, just don't hurt me." Her words surprised Samuel. He had expected fear after all. Misunderstandings between settlers and Apache people were common. But hearing her speak like that made his heart tighten. She was not afraid of him as a man. She was afraid of the long history between their communities, the mistrust that had grown over the years. She had probably met people who were unkind, and now she assumed the worst. Samuel raised both hands slightly, palms open, to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said gently. "I just saw you sitting here and thought you might need help. That's all." The woman studied him for a moment, as if weighing his words. She had a cautious look in her eyes, strong but tired. Samuel noticed her hands were shaking a little. The storm must have taken a toll on her. "My name is Samuel Hayes," he added softly. "I own a small ranch not far from here. If you're lost or hurt, I can help." The woman hesitated, her breathing uneven. She looked down at her hands, then back at Samuel. Her voice was quiet but clearer this time. "My name is Nayeli." "It's nice to meet you." "Nayeli," Samuel replied, keeping his voice calm. "Can you tell me what happened? Are you hurt?" Nayeli shook her head slowly. "Not hurt. Just tired. The storm came suddenly. The wind was strong. I got separated from my family." Her eyes grew distant for a moment, as if replaying the confusion of the storm. "I tried to find them, but the wind covered their tracks. I walked for hours. Then I felt too weak to keep going." Samuel felt a gentle ache in his chest. The desert was beautiful, but it could be unforgiving, especially after a storm. "I'm sorry that happened," he said kindly. "Would you like some water? I have plenty." Nayeli glanced at his saddlebag and then at him. She hesitated again, but her dry lips and weary expression revealed how badly she needed refreshment. Samuel slowly reached for his canteen and placed it on the ground halfway between them, careful not to move too close. "There," he said. "It's yours if you want it." Nayeli watched him for a long moment, ensuring he wasn't tricking her. Then she slowly crawled forward and picked up the canteen. She opened it and took a small sip at first, then a deeper one, relief softening her face. When she handed it back, her hands trembled less. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," Samuel said with a warm nod. "If you want, I can take you to my ranch. You can rest there, eat, regain your strength. After that, we can figure out the best way to help you find your family." Her eyes widened slightly at the offer. "Your ranch?" she repeated, unsure. "Yes," Samuel replied. "It's a peaceful place, and you'll be safe there." Nayeli lowered her gaze, thinking. She had no reason to trust a stranger. But she also had no strength left to wander the desert alone. And something in Samuel's voice, steady, honest, calm, made her believe he meant every word. "I don't want to cause you any trouble," she murmured. "It's no trouble," Samuel assured her. "Helping someone who needs it is the right thing to do. Nothing more." Slowly, Nayeli nodded. Samuel stepped off his horse, untied a blanket from the saddle, and handed it to her. She wrapped it around herself gratefully. Then he helped her onto the horse, taking care not to startle her. He walked beside her as they began the slow journey toward his ranch, giving her space and time to adjust. As they traveled, Nayeli looked around, taking in the vast view of the desert, the long stretches of golden sand, the scattered shrubs, the distant mountains shaped like sleeping giants. She spoke very little, but her breathing seemed calmer than before. After a while, she finally asked, "Why did you stop to help me?" Samuel glanced up at her. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "If I were out here alone and tired, I would hope someone would do the same for me." Nayeli thought about his answer. It was honest, gentle. She wasn't used to such kindness from strangers, and it made her curious about this quiet rancher who seemed to expect nothing in return. As the sun began to lower in the sky, the outline of Samuel's ranch appeared in the distance. The wooden fence, the small house, the horses grazing peacefully. It all felt calm and safe, almost like a small world protected from the harshness of the desert. "You live here alone?" she asked softly. "For the most part, yes," Samuel replied. "I enjoy the quiet." Nayeli nodded slightly. "It looks peaceful." "It is," he said. "And you're welcome to rest here as long as you need." When they reached the ranch, Samuel helped her down from the horse with steady hands. He guided her to the porch, opened the door, and invited her inside. The room carried the scent of warm wood and freshly baked bread. The furniture was simple, but everything was clean and well kept. Nayeli stepped inside slowly, still cautious but no longer fearful. Samuel gave her space as she looked around, her eyes softening at the warmth of the place. "You can sit," he said gently. "I'll bring you some food." Nayeli lowered herself onto a wooden chair. Her eyes followed Samuel as he moved around the small kitchen, preparing a bowl of vegetable stew and a slice of bread. When he placed the food in front of her, she whispered a quiet "thank you," and he simply nodded. As she ate, Samuel sat a short distance away, giving her comfort without crowding her. The quiet of the room felt peaceful, almost like a shared understanding was forming between them. For the first time since the storm, Nayeli felt safe. Samuel didn't ask many questions. He didn't push her to explain more than she wanted to. Instead, he allowed her space, letting her feel control over her own story. When she finished eating, she looked at him with a small, grateful expression. "I didn't expect kindness today," she said softly. "Well," Samuel replied with a gentle smile, "sometimes kindness finds people when they need it most." The sun outside dipped below the horizon, washing the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. The desert night would soon bring cool air and quiet surroundings. Samuel lit a small lantern, its warm glow filling the room. Nayeli watched the light for a moment, then looked at Samuel again. She still felt the weight of everything she had been through, but it no longer felt as overwhelming as before. In that quiet moment, she realized that meeting Samuel might have been the one piece of luck the storm had left her with. The next morning at Samuel's ranch began with a quiet calmness. The sky slowly brightened with soft golden light, and the cool air carried the fresh scent of early dawn. Birds chirped gently from the nearby trees, and the horses in the corral moved slowly, stretching as they welcomed a new day. Samuel stepped out of the house, holding a cup of warm coffee in his hands, and took a deep breath. He enjoyed mornings like this, simple, peaceful, and full of promise. But today felt slightly different. There was someone new inside the house. Someone who had arrived unexpectedly and changed the usual rhythm of his life. When he opened the door and stepped back inside, he found Nayeli awake, sitting quietly near the small window. She had wrapped herself in the blanket he had given her, and she looked out at the open land as though she were trying to understand this new place. "Good morning," Samuel said gently. Nayeli turned toward him, her expression calm but still cautious. "Good morning," she replied softly. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. She paused, then nodded. "Yes. Better than I thought I would." There was a slight warmth in her voice, as if she was surprised to feel comfortable in a stranger's home. "I'm glad to hear that," he said with a small smile. "I made some breakfast. It's simple, but it will give you strength." Nayeli stood slowly, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said again. She seemed to say those words often, as if she wasn't used to receiving help without needing to repay it immediately. Samuel guided her to the table, where he had set out warm biscuits, fresh butter, and a pot of herbal tea. She took a seat, and he poured her a cup of tea, careful not to make her feel crowded. As she ate quietly, he prepared a small list in his mind of things he needed to do around the ranch. But he didn't want Nayeli to feel obligated to help, so he remained silent about his work. After finishing breakfast, Nayeli placed her hands neatly in her lap. "I want to do something," she said softly. "I don't want to just sit here. I can help." Samuel glanced at her with a thoughtful expression. He didn't want to pressure her, yet he could see sincerity in her eyes. She wanted to contribute, not because he expected it, but because she wanted to repay the kindness she had received. "Well," he said, "there are a few things that need doing, but nothing urgent. You should rest too." "I feel better today," she replied. "Working will help me more than resting." Samuel nodded. "All right, if you're sure." Nayeli stood from the chair. "I'm sure." Outside, the ranch was peaceful, bathed in warm sunlight. Samuel walked slowly so Nayeli could take her time. She looked around with curiosity, noticing the small barn, the fenced pasture, and the row of herbs growing along the edge of the house. The place had a calm energy, as if it had settled deep into the land. "We don't have to do anything heavy today," Samuel said. "Just some small tasks." "That's fine," Nayeli replied gently. He first brought her to the herb patch by the house. "These need trimming," he explained. "You seem to know plants well, so maybe you'll do a better job than me." Nayeli knelt down slowly and touched the leaves with the tips of her fingers. "These are good. Some are used for healing." She plucked a few carefully and tied them together with a small string. Samuel watched with quiet appreciation. He could tell she was skilled and thoughtful. "You can show me how to use them properly sometime," he said. She nodded. "I will." After gathering herbs, they moved on to the corral. The horses were calm, grazing lazily under the sun. Nayeli approached them slowly, letting them see and smell her before getting close. Animals seemed to understand her gentle presence. One of the younger horses stepped forward, nudging her hand softly, and she smiled quietly. "You're good with them," Samuel observed. "They understand when someone means no harm," she replied. Together they brushed the horses, cleaned the corral, and checked the water trough. Nayeli worked with steady, graceful movements. She didn't rush, but she didn't hesitate either. For someone who had been lost in the desert only yesterday, she moved with surprising strength. As they worked side by side, the silence between them was comfortable, not heavy. Samuel appreciated her presence. He had lived alone for years, and though he didn't mind solitude, having someone around brought a new kind of calmness to the ranch. After finishing the work, they took a short break under the shade of a tall mesquite tree. Samuel handed her a cup of cool water, and she accepted it gratefully. "This place feels peaceful," she said after a moment. "I try to keep it that way," Samuel replied. "Do you not get lonely?" she asked, her voice gentle. Sometimes, he admitted. But the land keeps me busy. And I suppose I got used to the quiet. Nayeli looked at him thoughtfully. Quiet can be good. But it can also feel heavy when there is no one to share it with. Samuel nodded. Her words touched him more deeply than he expected. Later in the afternoon, Nayeli noticed Samuel repairing a broken piece of rope near the barn. She walked over and sat beside him. "May I help?" she asked. Samuel looked at her with curiosity. "You know how to mend rope?" She nodded. "My family taught me many kinds of craft work." He handed her the rope, and she worked on it with practiced fingers, weaving the strands neatly until it looked almost new. When she finished, she handed it back to him with a slight smile. "Well," Samuel said, impressed, "I might have to ask for your help more often." Her cheeks warmed slightly, and she looked down modestly. "I'm happy to help." As the day went on, more of Nayeli's personality revealed itself in small, subtle ways. She spoke softly but with confidence. She observed the world around her carefully, noticing things Samuel often overlooked. She had a calm presence that made even simple tasks feel meaningful. While she helped with chores, Samuel prepared a simple lunch. They ate together under the open sky, sharing quiet conversation. She told him small pieces about her family, how they moved with the seasons, how they worked together, how they respected the land deeply. Samuel listened with interest, asking gentle questions without pressing too hard. "Do you think they are looking for you?" he asked carefully. She nodded. "Yes, they will not give up. But the storm took me far from them. We'll find a way to bring you back to them," Samuel said firmly. Nayeli looked at him with warm gratitude. "You do not even know me," she said, "yet you help me like an old friend." Samuel shrugged softly. "Kindness doesn't require many years," he replied. A quiet smile crossed her lips. By late afternoon, Samuel needed to check the fences along the edge of the ranch. He offered Nayeli the option to rest, but she insisted on joining him, so they walked along the boundary together, the warm wind brushing past them. Nayeli pointed out animal tracks and signs of weather changes, showing him things he had never noticed before. "You have sharp eyes," he said. She replied softly. "The land speaks if you learn to listen." As the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky with gentle colors, they headed back to the ranch. Samuel could feel the day's work settling into his muscles. But it was a good kind of tired. He sensed that Nayeli felt the same. When they returned to the house, he prepared a small evening meal, and Nayeli helped arrange the table. Everything they did felt natural, as if they had known each other longer than a single day. After dinner, they sat quietly, listening to the soft night sounds outside. Samuel finally spoke. "If you want, you can stay here until you feel strong enough to travel." Nayeli looked down at her hands, then back up at him. "I don't want to bring trouble to you. People may not understand why I am here." "I don't worry much about what people say," Samuel replied calmly. "I care more about doing what feels right." Nayeli studied him for a long, thoughtful moment. "You are kind," she said softly. Samuel smiled slightly. "I try." The lantern glowed warmly between them, casting a soft light around the room. In that gentle glow, Nayeli's expression softened even more. She felt safe not because the house was sturdy or the ranch was quiet, but because Samuel treated her with patience and respect. That night, as she lay in the small guest room, Nayeli thought about how surprising the world could be. One moment she had been alone in the desert, unsure of what would happen. The next moment, she had found a place where kindness lived quietly, without asking for anything in return. And for the first time since the storm, she fell asleep with a peaceful heart. The days that followed felt peaceful for Nayeli. Each morning she woke to the soft sunlight that slipped through the small window of the guest room. She could hear Samuel outside preparing for the day, feeding the horses, checking the barn, and moving with the calm steadiness of someone who was used to working alone. But now he was not alone. To her own surprise, Nayeli found comfort in the sound of another person nearby. It made her feel grounded, as if she had found a temporary shelter not just from the desert, but from the loneliness that had gripped her since the storm. Samuel, on the other hand, found himself adjusting to a new rhythm. Having someone around felt unusual but in a pleasant way. He noticed how Nayeli's presence made the ranch feel warmer, more alive. Sometimes he caught himself listening for her footsteps or expecting her soft voice to return a question. He never said it aloud, but he liked having someone to share the quiet moments with. One calm afternoon, while they were working near the barn, Samuel heard the sound of horses approaching from the distance. It wasn't unusual for riders to pass through the area, but something about the rhythm of the hooves made him pause. Nayeli noticed the change in Samuel's expression and looked in the same direction. Dust rose gently from the path. Soon, 3 men on horseback appeared, heading straight toward the ranch. Samuel recognized them from the nearby town, Tom Granger and his 2 companions. Men who often carried strong opinions and loud voices. They were not bad people, but they tended to judge quickly and question things that didn't fit their expectations. Samuel didn't want Nayeli to feel worried, so he spoke calmly. "Looks like some neighbors from town. Nothing to be afraid of." Nayeli gave a small nod, but Samuel could sense her uneasiness. She gently stepped back toward the barn, not to hide but to give Samuel space. He appreciated her understanding without needing any explanation. As the riders pulled up near the fence, Tom tipped his hat. "Afternoon, Samuel," he said in a tone that carried a mixture of friendliness and curiosity. "Afternoon," Samuel replied, keeping his voice steady and warm. "What brings you all this way?" Tom shifted in his saddle. "Just riding around, checking fences. And, well, we heard something in town." His eyes moved slightly. "Searching the yard. Heard you got someone staying with you." Samuel didn't flinch. He had expected the rumor to travel fast. People in town always talked when they noticed anything different. "I do," Samuel said simply. "Her name is Nayeli. She was caught in the storm and needed help." Assembly. Tom exchanged glances with the other men. "We heard she's from the Apache community." "She is," Samuel confirmed, his voice calm. Tom cleared his throat, trying to choose his words carefully. "Well, we just thought we'd come see for ourselves. Folks in town get uneasy when they hear something they don't understand." Samuel rested his hands at his sides and looked Tom in the eye. "There's nothing to be uneasy about. She's a person who needed shelter. That's all." Tom's tone softened slightly, though he still seemed puzzled. "I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. Just unexpected, that's all." Before Samuel could answer, one of the other men leaned forward in his saddle. "Is she here now?" "Oh," Samuel nodded. "She is. She's helping out around the ranch." The man looked around again, his eyes landing briefly on the barn door where Nayeli stood quietly. She stepped out slowly when she saw that Samuel was not hiding her presence. She held her hands together gently in front of her, standing with calm dignity. Her expression showed no fear, just careful watchfulness. Tom lowered his voice slightly, though it was still loud enough for everyone to hear. "Does she plan to stay long?" "She will stay until she finds her family again," Samuel said, his tone firm but courteous. "And she's welcome here as long as she needs." The men exchanged another glance. Tom hesitated, then spoke again, more cautiously this time. "Well, we won't trouble you. Just wanted to see for ourselves. The town can get stirred up easily." "I understand," Samuel replied. "But there's no trouble here." After a brief pause, Tom nodded. "All right then. We'll let you get back to your work." The men turned their horses and rode off slowly. As they disappeared down the dusty path, Samuel let out a quiet breath. Nayeli walked toward him, her expression thoughtful. "They came because of me," she said softly. "They came because they were curious," Samuel corrected gently. "Curiosity isn't the same as trouble." Nayeli looked down for a moment. "I don't want to cause problems for you. You have a good life here. I don't want to be the reason someone worries you." "You're not," Samuel said more firmly than she expected. "You haven't caused me any trouble at all. But others may think differently," she whispered. "People may talk," he admitted, "but talking is all they do. I'm more concerned about doing what feels right." Nayeli studied his face carefully. She saw honesty there, the same quiet steadiness she had seen in him since the moment he found her. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she might be standing in the middle of a situation he hadn't asked for. That evening, as the sun lowered behind the hills, Nayeli sat alone outside the house, watching the sky turn soft shades of orange and pink. The beauty of the sunset calmed her heart, but her thoughts remained heavy. She traced patterns in the dirt with her finger, thinking deeply. Samuel joined her quietly. "You're very quiet tonight," he said. Nayeli looked up at him. "I've been thinking," she replied. Samuel sat beside her, giving her space to speak when she was ready. "Your neighbors do not understand why I am here," she said softly, "and I do not want to bring trouble to your life. You helped me when you didn't have to. You showed me kindness. I don't want to repay that kindness by making things harder for you." Samuel shook his head gently. "You're not making anything harder. I'm staying in your home," she continued. "People may judge you for that." "Let them judge," Samuel said with quiet strength. "Their opinions don't decide what I do." Nayeli looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and worry. She wanted to believe him, but she also knew that sometimes misunderstandings grew quickly, like small sparks that could spread into something larger. That night, she lay awake on the small bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her family, wondering if they were searching for her. She thought about Samuel and how he had chosen to help her, even when it complicated his own life. And finally, she thought about the ranch, the safe, warm place that had become more comforting than she ever expected. The next morning, when Samuel stepped out of his room, he found the guest room empty. The blanket was folded neatly, and the small window was open, letting in the cool morning air. His heart tightened as he realized what had happened. He rushed outside, calling softly, "Nayeli?" There was no answer. He checked the barn, the corral, the garden, nothing. Only quiet morning light greeted him. Then he noticed footprints leading away from the ranch. Lightly pressed into the soft earth, she had left. She had tried to protect him. Samuel followed the footprints immediately, moving quickly but carefully. His heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of worry that she might exhaust herself again. The desert was still harsh, even in the morning. As he walked, he imagined her thoughts, thinking she was helping him by disappearing, thinking it was better for both of them. But she didn't need to carry that burden. After nearly an hour of walking, Samuel finally saw her ahead, sitting under the shade of a lone tree. Her head was bowed, her posture tired but calm. She didn't hear him approach until he was close enough to speak. "You didn't even say goodbye," Samuel said softly. Nayeli lifted her head, her eyes wide with surprise. "Samuel, why did you follow me?" "Because you shouldn't be out here alone," he replied simply. "And because you didn't need to leave." "I thought it was better," she said quietly. "I thought I was protecting you." Samuel shook his head. "I didn't ask for protection. I asked you to stay until you were ready to leave for the right reasons." Nayeli's voice wavered. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You're not trouble," he said firmly. "You're someone I chose to help. Someone I care about even if I don't fully understand it yet." Those words settled into the air between them, warm and honest. Nayeli looked at him with soft eyes. "You would still let me stay?" "Yes," Samuel said, "as long as you want." She lowered her gaze, touched by his sincerity. "Then, I will return with you." They walked back together slowly, side by side. The desert air felt different now, not heavy with fear but light with understanding. And though neither said it aloud, something new had begun to grow between them. Trust, respect, a bond shaped quietly, without force, but strong enough to guide both of them forward. The weeks that followed moved quietly across the open land, carrying with them small changes that neither David nor Ayanna noticed at first. The days were calm, the skies were clear, and the mountains around the ranch stood like old guardians, silently watching life unfold. After everything that had happened, the fear, the misunderstandings, the danger, they finally had space to breathe. Every morning, David woke before sunrise and walked outside to look at the horizon. The habit had become part of his life after losing so much: his family, his peace, and his sense of belonging. But now, his morning view felt different. He would see a small fire burning near the corral and Ayanna sitting beside it, warming her hands or preparing tea in the simple clay cup she had made. She always looked peaceful at that hour, as if the early light belonged only to her. David found himself slowing down, watching her before she noticed him. He didn't understand why her presence made the mornings softer, but it did. Ayanna had begun helping around the ranch without being asked. She fed the horses, checked the fences, and even cleaned the small barn on her own. She worked quietly, but with a care that made David pause. He had never asked her to repay anything, never expected her to stay after he protected her. Yet she remained, as if she felt safer there than anywhere else. One afternoon, while repairing a loose rail on the corral, David glanced at her and finally asked, "You don't have to do all this. You've helped more than enough already." She looked up, brushed dust off her hands, and gave a small smile. "I stay because I want to," she said simply. "I feel peace here, more than I have felt in a long time." Her words settled deep in him. He didn't push for more. He understood that everyone carried their own weight, and sometimes silence was the safest way to hold it. In the evenings, they often shared meals together. David cooked simple dishes, beans, bread, roasted vegetables, while Ayanna brought herbs she found in the hills. She knew which ones were good for calming the body and which ones eased pain. The blend of their skills made the meals strangely comforting, as if two different worlds were quietly learning to live side by side. As the nights grew colder, the stars above the ranch became clearer. Sometimes, after finishing their chores, they sat near the small fire and talked. At first, their conversations were short, only about practical things: weather, animals, repairs. But slowly, the walls between them began to soften. One night, she told him a story from her childhood about a spring hidden deep in the mountains, where her people believed the wind carried messages of courage. Her voice was gentle, almost musical. And David listened carefully, picturing the place through her eyes. He didn't interrupt, he didn't judge, he simply let her speak. When she finished, she looked down at her hands. "I miss home," she said in a soft voice. "But home is not safe the way it once was." David understood more than she realized. He knew what it meant to feel like you no longer belonged to the place that raised you. "You can stay here as long as you need to," he said. Her eyes lifted to his, warm and grateful. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Two riders appeared on the horizon. Apache scouts from Ayanna's community. David tensed immediately, but Ayanna stepped forward calmly, raising her hand in greeting. The men recognized her and came closer, their faces showing relief. They spoke with her in their language, and David waited at a respectful distance. After a long conversation, the scouts explained that they had been searching for her for weeks. Word had spread that she had been taken by dangerous men, and they feared the worst. They thanked David for protecting her, though their expressions remained serious and guarded. When the men left, Ayanna stood quietly for several moments. David approached slowly. "You're free to return with them," he said. "You don't owe me anything." She shook her head. "I know, but I'm not ready to go back. Not yet." "They understand." He nodded, unsure how to respond. But a small part of him felt relieved that she chose to stay. Over the next few days, a new feeling settled between them, not something spoken, but something sensed. There was trust, patience, and an unspoken understanding that both had survived things they didn't fully talk about. They didn't pretend to be the same. They didn't try to erase the differences between them. Instead, they learned to work together, sharing the land in quiet harmony. One evening, David found Ayanna sitting near the fence watching the horses. Her long, dark hair moved with the wind like it was part of the land itself. He approached and leaned against the rail beside her. "You've been thoughtful lately," he said lightly. She nodded. "I am thinking about the future. My people may want me to return soon. They worry. They wonder. But I have grown used to this place. It feels safe. It feels like somewhere I can heal." David didn't know what to say, so he looked at the ground and asked, "What do you want?" The question hung in the air longer than he expected. Finally, she said, "I want to find a life where fear does not follow me. A life where I can breathe. A life where I am not always running." She paused, then added, "This ranch has given me something I did not expect. Peace." David felt warmth gather in his chest. Not happiness exactly, something deeper, quieter. Over the next few mornings, Ayanna spent more time helping with the horses. She had a calming way with animals. Even the more restless Mustang listened to her gentle whispering. David watched her with admiration. He had always worked alone, and now he realized how much lighter the days felt with someone beside him. One afternoon, they rode together across the open land to check the outer fence. The wind was strong, carrying the smell of dry grass and earth. For miles, nothing broke the silence, except the sound of the horses' hooves. Ayanna looked around in quiet wonder. "This land is wide and open," she said. "It feels like a place where anyone could start over." David smiled. "Maybe that's why I chose it." They stopped near a small hill where the view stretched endlessly. Ayanna closed her eyes and listened to the wind. After a moment, she said softly, "I thought I would never feel safe again. But here, I feel like the fear inside me is finally fading." David looked at her, noticing how the sunlight touched her face. "I'm glad," he said. "You deserve peace." When they returned to the ranch, the sky had turned golden with evening light. As they walked their horses into the barn, Ayanna suddenly stopped and looked at him with a steady gaze. "You helped me when you didn't have to," she said. "You showed kindness when others chose cruelty. I will never forget that." He felt a quiet ache in his chest. A mixture of gratitude and something he couldn't name. "You brought peace back to this place too," he replied. "I didn't realize how empty things had become until you arrived." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was full, not empty. That night, as they sat near the warm fire, the stars clear and bright above them, Ayanna spoke again. "My people may call me back soon. And maybe one day I must return. But wherever I go, I will carry this place with me. And the kindness you showed." David nodded slowly. "Whatever you choose, just know you have a home here too. Always." The gentle crackle of the fire filled the space between them. The moon rose over the mountains, silver and calm, casting a soft glow across the ranch. In that quiet moment, both felt something shift, something steady, something rooted, something honest. Ayanna looked at the land stretched before her. It no longer felt like a place she was hiding in. It felt like a place she belonged to. David watched her with a calm heart. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't expect anything. He simply felt grateful that life had brought her to his lonely ranch. Grateful that two people from different worlds could find peace in each other's presence. As the night deepened, a gentle breeze passed through the grass. It carried no fear, no danger, only the promise of a new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, they both felt that the world, despite its scars, still had room for hope.